Okay. So basically, Pakistan Agile Education, I have already given the introduction on different platforms. So this is a community group for Agile Education in Pakistan, and we are trying to spread this knowledge. And for this purpose, the very purpose, we are also trying to having another session in Pakistan that will be conducted in Karachi for CSM certification. This is Certified Scrum Master. That will be conducted in Karachi, and there will be another session that will be in Islamabad coming month. So for this purpose, trainer Zia Malik, he'll be joining us from London. He'll be traveling over here, and the rest of the details will be shared after this session. So the purpose of having all these sessions is to start a series of different lessons on different topics on Agile frameworks. That includes Scrum, Kanban, and including the extreme programming down the road as well. So this particular session is related to the Agile Manifesto and Scrum framework as an overview point of view, because I got a lot of queries there. The people who are trying to attend the CSM session in Karachi, so they are also willing to have some sort of overview before joining that session. So that will be an overview for complete Scrum framework and the Agile Manifesto. So there will be other sessions where we will be going in deep details for each session. Take an example, that will be sprint planning, and there will be daily Scrum. We can have multiple sessions on these areas. So let me start, and just for your information, this is an open session. If you have any question, you can talk to me directly. You can ask me. So the purpose, why the buzzword agile, why a lot of people, why a lot of companies are using agile practices nowadays. So what is the reason behind this? Why waterfall is not working nowadays? The purpose is definitely the time has changed. The processes are changed. The way of working is changed. This is the reason we also need to improve the style of working, the processes, and that's the very reason that waterfall is not working the same way. We have new challenges. Having sight of new frameworks is essential right now. So most of the time, when we talk about the waterfall model, that's morely related to the relay race. What was the relay race? If you guys know about that. So there were different participants. A team works in the relay race, and one participant actually drops the beacon to the another. And this is the way the other participant has to wait for him. So this approach was used in waterfall model. So what we need to do is in Agile world, we need to change this way of working. Relay race is the best example to show the waterfall approach, where one phase is dependent to another phase. Once the analysis is started, development is waiting for the analysis. Once the development is started, testing is started after once the development is ended. Otherwise, testing cannot be started. So we have seen a lot of projects in 90s and early 2000 that were like 6 months, most of the teams development is doing, and then the testing is waiting for the development team. And once the testing is started, then again, if they get a new requirement during that testing, so this whole process is initiated from the analysis again. So there were a lot of problems at that time. But nowadays, like since we have seen the mobile development and other rapid development practices, so this practice is not going to work anymore. So Agile Manifesto, there's a lot of confusion about Agile and Agile Manifesto and Scrum. Most of the people don't know about Agile Manifesto or even the difference between Agile and Scrum. So let me brief you first that what is Agile and what is Scrum. Even I have seen a lot of people during my interview sessions that they mention that what sort of processes or frameworks you have used. They only mention I used Agile/Scrum. So difference between Agile and Scrum is the main thing you need to know. So Agile is only a statement of values. That's not a framework. Agile, what Agile defines is the manifesto. That is important. And following these statement of values, the frameworks are derived. Scrum is a framework. Scrum is an agile framework. Similarly, Kanban is an agile framework because they are all following these values. They are all following Agile Manifesto. So what is Agile Manifesto now? So Agile Manifesto is created on top of all the problems, those we have seen in waterfall model. So that's a complete comparison in Agile Manifesto. Individual and interactions over processes and tools. In earlier processes, we used to have a lot of processes and tools. Now, in Agile, we are preferring individuals and interactions. Similarly, working software over comprehensive documentation. I have seen a lot of other processes. Take an example in standard CMMI level 4 to 5, that takes a lot of documentation. Even there were a lot of documents to create before doing the development. So this comprehensive documentation is not needed anymore. Working software is what client needs. And there's another thing, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So customer collaboration in earlier, if we take an example, in waterfall model in earlier projects, customer collaboration was very minimal. Starting the project, we used to get interact with the customer, and mostly in the mid of the project, or once we need to give some sort of demo to the project, to the software. So customer collaboration is very much important in Agile frameworks. How this is important, how we can implement, we will check that in the framework, Scrum framework. Responding to change was another challenge instead of following a plan. So this is how this is important. Take an example. If there's a plan and we need to follow that plan, okay, there are few dates for the development, and then the testing will be started. And during that development, if we get another change from the client, so this was very, very problematic. That how like we can adjust this change. This will change our deadlines. This will change our timelines. We have already done a lot of work on that. So that most of the time change created a lot of problems in the waterfall model. But in Agile, the frameworks are created to adjust the changes. This is the reason the small sprints were created and customer collaboration was increased. So we can quickly get the change. We can quickly get the feedback from the client. Instead of showing him the product after a year or 6 months, then get the feedback. And then from the scratch, we have to start a new thing. So this is the basically Agile Manifesto, and all the Agile frameworks, they follow these 4 principles. If you have any questions about Agile Manifesto, please interrupt me. Okay. Now the Scrum. Today I'm only focusing on the Scrum framework, and for the later sessions we will go in more deep about the different Scrum ceremonies, artifacts. So overall, what is the Scrum framework? Scrum. There's another mostly a very big question about methodology and framework. So there's a difference between methodology and framework. Scrum is actually a framework. This means that it has a flexible approach. Methodology is normally works with rules and processes and very strict. From framework, on the other hand, is very flexible and can be adjusted accordingly. So that's the main reason you only need to, whenever you talk about Scrum, Scrum is the framework, not a methodology. Its major characteristics: Scrum is an agile framework that allows us to focus on delivering the highest business value in the shortest time. Again, the first statement, you need to focus. Scrum is an agile framework. It allows us to rapidly and repeatedly inspect an actual working software. In all the agile frameworks, you will see one particular thing, that inspect and adapt. That is very much important part. So how we can inspect and how we can adapt. So all these ceremonies in Scrum framework, you will see that we will be inspecting. We will be inspecting the different areas, and at the end of the sprint, we will adapt. We will learn from our mistakes. This is the reason there are different, and there is sprint retrospective. That's a particular meeting where we do the inspect and adapt. What we have done wrong, what we have done good, and what could have been better. Similarly, the business sets the priorities, teams self-organize, determine the best way to deliver the highest value features. And now, that's the main part, that sprints in a Scrum, mostly you can say maximum can be of 1 month, or at least, or 2 weeks, or 1 week even. So after a sprint, having a sprint of 1 month means after a sprint, you can see a working software. So this is something that has been decided in sprint planning. Requirements are captured as items in a list of product backlog. We will learn about product backlog, what it is, and to scale multiple teams across very organization. This is Scrum scaling, that is scaled Agile, and we will have a complete session on scaled Agile. So Scrum is basically derived from this rugby team. This is the formation of the team during the Scrum in rugby. Instead of running in linear position, this is the way they have to work together. So far, any question? Okay. So Scrum is an innovative approach to complete your work. So this is the major highlight of the Scrum framework. There are only 3 roles. We don't have much roles. Take an example, in other frameworks, in other processes, we have a lot of roles. We have software engineer, we have some sort of designer, we have some sort of technical writer, and we have a manager, we have a team lead, a technical lead, and a deployment engineer. So these all roles are not needed in Scrum. There are only 3 roles: product owner, Scrum master, and a team. What product owner does, he is responsible for interacting with the client and getting all the requirements and writing it down. Scrum master is a person who will be interacting with the product owner, and he will be working as a servant leader with the team. And team is a development team that includes everyone. That includes your designer, that includes your developer, that includes your test engineers, everyone. Ceremonies, these are the major meetings. And those are conducted in Scrum framework. First of all, sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, and retrospective. So we will learn about these ceremonies. Artifacts, product backlog, sprint backlog, burn down charts. These are the main artifacts. Those are used in Scrum framework. So this is only a list that we will be covering in today's session. And that will be only an overview, but that will be enough to understand the details. So before going in detail, we need to understand what's the difference between commitment and involvement. So for that purpose, normally I use this example in my trainings, and that's very much interesting because uh, mostly we don't know what sort of stakeholders we should include in our project and what their role would be. Are they committed, or they are only involved? So for that purpose, let's take a quick example. There's a chicken and a pig. So chicken suggested the pig, hey pig, we should open a restaurant. And pig said, I'm not sure what would call it. Ham and eggs, that's an idea from the chicken, but this gives a shock to the pig. Reason? No thanks. I would be committed, and you would only be involved. So this is the major difference, the commitment and involvement. So if we apply the same concept in our projects. So the pigs who will be committed, those are the team, scrum master, and the product owner who will be actually working on the project. And the stakeholders, those will be involved, those are your management, your customers, and your users. They they will be not working on that particular project, or they are not, you can say, that much committed to the project. But yes, their responsibilities and their input will always be there. So moving to the product owner role now. So the product owner, as I mentioned earlier, this is the person who will be interacting with the clients, and that's a very much important role. Responsible for the profitability of the product and especially the ROI. That's very much important, and that's a person who defines the requirement and manages the product. This is a very important role. This is a very important part that defines the requirements, manages the product backlog. This is a person who actually creates a product backlog, and also he prioritizes the backlog because he is the person who is getting the requirements from the client. He knows which requirement is more prioritized as compared to the other one, and he's the person who gives the requirements and priorities to the team. And another very important part, accepts or rejects the items according to the definition of done. If team, this means if team has done some work, completed some work, he is the person who accepts or rejects that work. He will review it and he'll let you know that if this is really done or not. Maintains features and priority every iteration as needed and ensures the team's value. So you can say this person is the interface of the product team to the client. And all these roles, by the way, all these roles nowadays have a complete job description. So if you see in international market, if there are some job postings, so they will be requiring, we need a product owner who will be performing these tasks. There will be we need a scrum master who will be responsible for these responsibilities. So these roles are now have become the job descriptions. Or product owner, you can say, the people who are already performing project management services and they are client interfacing, and they, or some people who are business analysts, they can convert themselves into product owner role. Okay. So next very much important role, that's the Scrum Master. This is the most renowned role in nowadays because it has a lot of flexibility. Any person who is a developer, who is a quality engineer, who can be a designer, or who can be a project manager, they can convert themselves in Scrum Master role. This is very dynamic role. So what are the major responsibilities for this role? This person works with the team very closely, or you can say he sits with the team. He works with the team, sits with the team, and this role is actually derived from the servant leadership concept. So servant leadership, what is servant leadership? Servant leadership is where there's like in the old days, uh, in like different houses and different companies, there is a complete team of servants, and there's a person who is the leader, who is you can say the supervisor of the complete team. So the difference between servant leader and the normal manager is basically that servant leader, he performs his own duties, plus he manages the whole team. The whole team actually does not report to that person, but he is the team player and he has to manage everyone and plus also perform his own duties. There's a major difference between manager and a servant leader. In case of manager or project manager, the team reports to the manager, and manager, like, he can have his separate responsibilities, not the same as the team. In this case, servant leader or scrum master, he also can develop the code. He can even help the test engineers in their testing, and he can also help designers or UI experience developers in their work. So the team, the development team, they don't report to this person. They report to their own manager. That's a completely different story, but they don't report to Scrum Master. Scrum Master is only there to help complete their work. That's a major difference. And most of the people, they actually confuse Scrum Master with the team lead or the project manager. And even I have seen a lot of examples where a Scrum Master is working as a project manager. So that's a major difference we need to understand in Scrum Master's role. So what he does, coaches the team to improve productivity and quality, enable close cooperation across all roles and functions, protects the teams from external interference and changes. This is very much important because there is a lot of interference in teams where a team is trying to achieve some deadline and there's some interference from other departments, requests, or anything. So this is a person who helps them to avoid such interference, ensures that the team follows the values, principles, and practices of Scrum, and removes impediments. So he will be there as your processes coach. He'll be there as your team member, and he'll be there to remove all sort of impediments. So the only purpose that Scrum Master is there is to help people to get the decided items to be done. I think there's some question. Do we have any question?
Yeah, actually, Mohsin, I have a question.
Yes. I think,
Okay,
who is this?
this is Naji.
Okay, just Naji.
Yeah. Okay. So, as you said that you experienced the same, that Scrum Master is a project manager and at some organizations. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I have witnessed the same, and I have worked in an organization
Mm-hmm.
where a project manager was in a role of a Scrum Master, and there was a business analyst. That guy was a product owner. So, and as far as from before today's session, I thought project manager usually is a Scrum Master. So your statement actually confused me here.
Okay, so what you have explained, that project manager in your case, what you have seen, the project manager was the Scrum Master and the business analyst was the product owner. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Okay, so the point is, Naji, that's not important who can perform the Scrum Master or product owner role. If there's a team in your team, if there's a project manager who has the ability to perform Scrum Master role, then he can become the Scrum Master. The difference between the Scrum Master and the project manager is the team will not report to Scrum Master. That's the major difference. Scrum Master does not evaluate the team's performance. He does not give any input in evaluations. He is only there just to act like a servant leader to help the team. If the project, in your case, if the project manager who has converted into the Scrum Master role and he is still managing the team and he is still doing his project manager role, then he is not actually performing the Scrum Master responsibilities. And there's, in Pakistani culture, I have seen a lot of these examples. Like there's a technical team lead who is performing a Scrum Master role, and all the team is reporting to that person. The reporting line is changed in Scrum. The team does not report to Scrum Master. So in your case, in your question, if the project manager is working as a Scrum Master and the team is not reporting to that person, and he is working as a servant leader, he's working as a team player and helping the team, then it's perfectly okay. But if the team is reporting to that person and he has the input in their evaluation, then that's a problem. Then this is not Scrum.
Okay, point taken.
Okay. Okay, so the next part is the team. So as I mentioned earlier, the team includes all the roles, all the standard roles. So that includes what are the major team size. This is 5 to 9. So again, uh, I think there is some noise. Okay, Saad, can you please mute?
Sure, sure.
Okay, thank you. So there's another confusion about team size. So most of the time, what I have seen in different companies, I worked with different companies. So how they are implementing a Scrum framework. So interestingly, what they try to implement Scrum, and they don't change their team structure. They don't change their hierarchy structure. As I mentioned earlier, in Scrum Master and Product Owner case, if their technical lead, he becomes the Scrum Master, and in some cases project manager becomes the, or business analyst becomes the product owner. Similarly, if there's a team of 15 people, so what they do, they create one team, one scrum master, and one product owner. So there are some rules defined by Scrum framework. Team size should be minimum of 5 and maximum of 9 people. That shouldn't be more than 9. There's a purpose of that. If you have, take an example, 15 to 16 people, you need to create 2 teams. You need to have 2 separate scrum masters. One product owner can work. And there are different other concepts as well that, like I have seen a lot of questions that if one scrum master can work with multiple teams, one product owner can work with multiple teams. So they can work, but that depends, that actually change the priorities. If one Scrum Master is working with multiple teams, this means he has a lot of pressure, he has more work to do, and he cannot focus on one team's performance, and there can be problems with that. So the ideal situation is a team of maximum of 9 people with one Scrum Master and one product owner. That's the ideal, and that's the recommended size defined by Scrum framework. Similarly, membership should change only between sprints. This means that if, like in most of the teams, there are some support people, like some DBA guy, they can work in your team. Some designers, they can work on in your team. But the new person can come in the team after the sprint. During the sprint, it's not recommended to join the team. So during the sprint planning, this is decided that who will be working in this team, because in sprint planning, whole team sits together and they do the planning. Dedicated members, there may be exceptions that I already mentioned, DB and IT support. And similarly, designers, they also are the shared resources. So there are two special skill set that Scrum suggests. They should be cross-functional and they should be self-organizing. What is meant by cross-functional? So the cross-functional people, they're the people who can work on multiple areas. Means a developer who can also perform that quality assurance services, or a quality assurance person who can also help in user experience or designer, or who can also write some code. So nowadays, the work dynamics are changed. So mostly we don't need black box testing. Nowadays, if you have seen, there's a lot of companies who are hiring proper developers for their quality assurance department. So they can write proper test cases and they can write the code to test their softwares. So a cross-functional team means a person who can perform multiple functions. Similarly, self-organizing team, this means that they don't need a manager. This is a reason Scrum Master is not defined as a manager. Scrum team is a self-organizing team. They don't need a manager. They learn from their mistakes, they inspect their mistakes, and they adapt accordingly. So this is the reason self-organizing is very much important. There's another concept over here that how a team can work without a manager. So this is something that we need to learn, because once you are working as a team you are very visible. If any person who is not performing well in a team, he will be highlighted. And there are other models as well, like scrum team. In scrum team, in all these roles, there's no manager. Product owner, he has different responsibilities. Scrum master has a different responsibility. Similarly, the team is working as a self-organizing unit. So there are managers, there are functional or people managers. They are working separately, and that actually depends on the organizational structure and hierarchy. Enable close cooperation across all roles and functions. Since the whole team is working together, they have a one goal, one definition of done for the whole sprint that they need to achieve. So they have to work together. So this is a reason they don't need a manager, because they have to work together and everyone's goal is same, to achieve the definition of done, what they have decided during the sprint planning. So that's the third role, and that's very much important role. Ceremonies. Now that's another important part. These are after these three roles, the ceremonies, how many ceremonies we have in Scrum framework. Sprint planning is the first ceremony where we do all the planning. Then there will be daily Scrum meetings. And once the sprint is, daily Scrum meetings only happen during the sprint, and afterwards sprint review, then retrospective, and then again for the next sprint, there will be sprint planning. So sprint planning. During the sprint planning, the moderator is the product owner, because sprint planning is something that where product owner will be delivering the requirements to the team, and he'll be explaining everything to the team. Mostly for a month sprint, 1 day of work is dedicated to sprint planning. And further, sprint planning is divided into two parts: what we need to do and how we need to do. Product owner, that he provides all the prioritized items to the team, and then they work with the team to make the release plan and explain the vision. There are some other details, but we will have a complete session on sprint planning with the examples and planning techniques, including the planning poker sort of examples, in a separate session. What the team does, team selects items from the product backlog they can commit, and sprint backlog is created and tasks are identified. And the estimation is different ways to do the estimation that we will see in the coming sessions. Collaboratively, not done alone by the Scrum Master, team and product owner define the sprint objective and establish definition. Now, this is very much important. Like the purpose of sprint planning is product owner gives the requirements and team selects the requirements. They select the work they need to do. It's not something product owner, Scrum Master assigns the work to the team. This is now how it works. Team they themselves pull the work. They check all those prioritized requirements, and they select the work, what they need to do. Then they give the estimates. So what is sprint? Once the sprint planning is done, sprint is started. As I mentioned earlier, that a sprint can be 2 or 4 weeks, and moderator is a team, because sprint is something where the actual execution is done, actual implementation is done. This is the reason the moderator is the team, and participants, like everyone, is the participant during the sprint. Product owner is a passive participant, because he'll be working on the requirement, he'll be continuously in touch with the client, but actively team and Scrum Master, they will be working on the sprint. They will be the active partners, because during the sprint, actual product will be developed. So development of the application from the sprint backlog in which the team is involved, and the maintenance of the level of done, that includes the development unit tests and rest of the things. That's normal. We do that during the software development phases. Co-management of impediments with the Scrum Master, and co-maintenance of the sprint backlog with the product owner. So team actually works with the Scrum Master to remove the impediments. Those can happen during a sprint, and co-maintenance with the product owner. Now that's very important point. Co-maintenance of sprint backlog with the product owner. Sometimes, because since the people who are working in a sprint, they are dedicatedly working to develop that product what they have selected, what they have worked, you can say what they have pulled up work, they are putting the efforts to complete that work. During a sprint, there's a possibility product owner is in touch with the client and there is some requirement, and he has to refine that requirement. He has to confirm few things from the team. So team can also interact with the product owner to help him finalize the requirements. Those are not in the sprint. This is called product backlog refinement. That's a complete different topic we will discuss in a later session. But the purpose of co-maintenance of sprint backlog with product owner, this is something that we need to mention over here, that few people, they can help product owner to refine few requirements. Daily Scrum, that's most of the, and people know about that. And interestingly, this particular meeting is very misused. Is like in a lot of companies, people misuse the daily Scrum word. Take an example, they convert it into a daily status meeting. There are some attributes for daily Scrum, and like take an example, it should not be more than 15 minutes, and we only need to give the status that what we have done so far, what we have done yesterday, and what we will do today. So this is the main purpose of daily Scrum. So I have seen in a lot of companies what they do, like take an example, they are following a waterfall model, but their daily status meeting, they call it daily Scrum. So that's a very wrong word to use. This is not a daily Scrum. And even when they call it daily Scrum, they schedule it for 1 hour meeting. So that's another wrong thing. Daily Scrum cannot be for like more than 15 minutes. That you need to learn. Is there a question? Okay. Okay. So just to give you a demo of what a daily Scrum looks like, I have a video if it can be played. If you can hear the voice, let me know. Guys, can you hear the voice of the video? Anyone can tell me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, great. Okay. So that was a quick demo of daily Scrum. And if you have observed this video, that every person from the team, they were answering three questions, like what did they do yesterday, what they will be doing today, and is there any block or impediment. And it was quick, like almost 3 minutes. So this is what daily Scrum is, not more than that. If you have a particular question during the daily Scrum meeting that you think you need some more details about that, and you need more time to discuss that, do it after the daily Scrum call. Because the purpose of daily Scrum is getting together on a single platform, the whole team, including you. You have seen there's a person who joined the call remotely. So this is the reason they were using the microphone. So the people who joined this call remotely, they can also hear their voice. So this is the main purpose, that everyone is giving their status. That's it. If there is more details required, those people, they can work together, they can talk to each other after the call, but not during that daily Scrum call. So that's the main purpose. And again, the moderator, since this is during the sprint, the moderator will remain the team, and the active participants will also be the team. Scrum Master and Product Owner, they will be the passive partners, or you can say participants for this call. Is there any
Mohsen,
question?
I got a question. Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So if let's say, for example, I'm in a team and I'm the developer, and in a daily Scrum meeting, I mentioned that okay, this is a showstopper for me. For example, one task is a showstopper for me, and any other guy knows about it, and he can just answer spontaneously there, right? Because he knows the solution. So is it feasible that he answers there, or is it recommended to be answered after the Scrum session?
Okay, that's a very good question, and this is very frequent in daily Scrum. Yes, recommended way is to quickly answer that question there. Like, you don't need to stop yourself to answer that question. But for more detail, take an example. If you answer that question, then the person who asked the question asks more details. Okay, so if this is take an example, if you have written some sort of API, and the person who is asking that, okay, I need to do some sort of development, I need I'm stuck somewhere, and if there is existing API that can perform this function, that will be good. This is my impediment. So you can answer the answer of that question right away. That, okay, I have worked on this, I have an API, and you can meet me after the call. So this is a proper way of doing it. If there's a very small thing, there is a small problem that you can answer in like within a minute, you can also do that. But the purpose of having the whole team standing over there for just a 15 minutes is to collaborate with each other. And this is the reason the details are avoided at that time, because only two person will be discussing for one particular issue, but the rest of the team's times will be wasted. So again, this is self-organizing. You guys will be there. You can talk to each other. You can answer each other's question, but you need to be careful that the actual purpose of the daily scrum should not be missed.
Sure.
Hope I answer your question. Okay. So it is the inspect and adapt from team, synchronization and commitment. This is the purpose of meeting each other, helps avoid other unnecessary meetings. So this is the core essence of this meeting. Sprint review, another very renowned topic and most of the time misunderstood topic. What is sprint review? So sprint review is a meeting. Once the sprint is over, this meeting is conducted. The moderator is product owner. Again, you need to understand the logic. So who can be the moderator? Anything that's related to the requirement, the moderator will be the product owner. Anything that's related to the execution of the software or the sprint, the moderator will be the team or scrum master. So mostly scrum master does not moderate such things, but he can help the team to moderate any meeting. So sprint review is something where once the work is completed, you need to show the work to the stakeholders. Stakeholders can include the product owner, first of all, and the client even, or the management as well, if this is an internal project. So again, the team is the active part of that, and similarly, the participants can be the management, customer, or user. They can also be active. Scrum Master can be passive because actually team has to explain what they have done. Again, if there's a 1 week, if there's a 1 month sprint, so 4 hours are enough for sprint review. So now this is the inspect and adapt from customer and users management. Daily Scrum, I mentioned inspect and adapt from the team because team is collaborating with each other. In sprint review, when we are showcasing our product to the management or the customer or the product owner, this is inspect and adapt from customer and users and management because they will be inspecting and adapting at that time. They will be checking the product after a month sprint. Okay, what we have given the requirement, and after a month quickly, what would be the output of that? And on that feedback, new user stories are written. Team informally presents what it accomplished during the sprint. That's informally presents. Like this is not some sort of a big presentation sort of thing. This is something they present what they have done so far. Typically takes a form of a demo of a new feature or underlying architecture. This can be some sort of demo, but not, you can say, officially a demo. User customer management express their comments and find a compromise with the team, and product owner accepts or rejects sprint backlog items according to the definition down. This point is very much important because the actual items completion depends on the product owner. If product owner accepts or rejects that particular item, this is actually in the hands of product owner. Take an example, a definition of a particular user story is defined. It has been demonstrated to the product owner and the rest of the teams. So product owner knows about the definition of done, and he will map the execution and the completion of that item with the definition of done, and he will mention this item has been accepted or rejected. So this is the reason the power of accepting or rejecting any user story is within the product owner's role. The next part is sprint retrospective, and that's also very much important and misused. You can say a meeting that most of us Scrum teams, they miss this sort of meeting, or they don't very much involve in this meeting. But this is very much important. Without this, you cannot implement the inspect and adapt. So the important part. Retrospective is something where moderator is Scrum Master. Team and rest of the people, everyone is active. Because this is something that where we need to learn from our mistakes, where we need to inspect what we have done, and where we need to adapt the reasons that you can say the improvements that we have done during the sprint. 3 hours for a month sprint is enough. 3 topics are discussed: start, stop, and continue. But this is not limited to only these 3 words. This is just one of, you can say, of many ways. Periodically take a look at what is and is not working, and done after every sprint. Whole team participates, and possibly customer and other stakeholders. Normally customer and other stakeholders, they don't participate, but there are few examples where we can have their input as well. So retrospective is very much important. This is something after each sprint, if you figure out during this sprint what we have done good and what we have done wrong, we need to inspect and adapt, and we need to implement this in the upcoming sprint. We have to stop doing what we were doing wrong in the upcoming sprint, and we have to start doing something better. And there are a few things that those you are already doing good, so we need to continue as the same. So this is the purpose of retrospective, and this is very much important. Without this, you cannot improve. That's the reason in Scrum, the way of evaluation is different. And this is the reason, like if we need to check a team's performance, we need to visualize multiple sprints performance. And then there are other indicators, capacity and velocity, but that's a different topic we will discuss later. Artifacts are like product backlog and sprint backlog. This is a pretty simple thing, but we need to understand the difference. Product backlog is something where all the requirements are stored, and that's maintained by product owner. This is the product backlog example, and there are different types of, like different tools are following different sort of conventions from product backlog point of view. In product backlog, there are two major indicators, two major, you can say, pointers. The first thing is the item, the requirement, and the other thing is its size. In product backlog, the estimations are done in story points. What are the story points and details? We will see in other session. That will be in Agile estimation and planning. So that's an example of product backlog, and that's example of the size. Sorry. So if you can see, product backlog answers following questions: what, when, and for who. All list of desired work on the project, and we have the, like, each item's value and user or customers of the product, prioritize items. Now again, this is very much important. If you see that there are different items, there can be epics. There's a difference between user story and epic. Epic is something that's not finalized, or you can say that's not properly in detail requirement. And the blocks you can see are the prioritized items. This is on top priority. The size of 2. This item is the top most prioritized items. Similarly, there will be some other items in the bottom, but their estimations you can see Excel, L, any estimation indicator we can use for that. And all these prioritizations are done by the product owner. That's an example of product backlog, where we have some sort of requirements. So a guest to make a reservation, estimate is 3. All these numbers are story points, not hours or minutes. There's a difference between story points and hours and minutes. That's another detailed example of product backlog, where we have the first column for the priority, and product backlog items, user story number. Again, if we are using, that depends on the tool. If we are using Jira or TFS or any other tool, that depends that which sort of user story number we are using. And story point is 40, estimate hours is 240. So that's the main thing that we need to understand. Story points are totally different as compared to the actual working hours. So you cannot compare 40 means 40 hours. Story points 40 means 240 hours even. Sprint backlog. Now there's another confusion. Most of the people, they don't understand the difference between the product and sprint backlog. Sprint backlog is derived or extracted from the product backlog before the sprint start. So take an example. If we have a product backlog and product owner has prioritized some items on top of the product backlog, so those top prioritized items are extracted from the product backlog and created as a sprint backlog. In product backlog, the estimations are done in story points. In sprint backlog, estimations are done in hours. That's a major difference. During the sprint, the team works on the sprint backlog. Product backlog is a different thing. That remains the same. So in simple words, the top prioritized items are extracted from the product backlog to be implemented during the sprint. And during the sprint, only the sprint backlog is focused. That's another example of sprint backlog, where you can see the product backlog items, and then there's a sprint backlog items, and then there will be tasks. So tasks are something to execute. Now, there's another important point that you need to understand, that there's a difference between user story and the tasks. Tasks are the execution of a requirement. User story is the requirement. So if there is a work item or a user story, in TFS language, you can call as a work item. In like Scrum or some other agile tools, you can call it as user story. So if there's a user story that's in the product backlog, so top 3 prioritized items we have created a sprint backlog, and for executing or completing one user story or work item, we can create many tasks to complete that. So that's a major difference between product backlog, sprint backlog, or user story and tasks. Individuals sign up for the work that already I mentioned, and work is never assigned. Uh, no one assigns the work to the team. Team pulls their work. And estimated work remaining is updated daily. Any number member can add, delete, change the sprint backlog. And this is the same with sprint backlog. With the larger amount of time and break it down later, update work remaining as more becomes known. And there's another example that we have a sprint backlog. And in case of sprint backlog, we have tasks and we have the number of hours. And according to the number of hours, the burn down chart is created. So all these things in like the estimations, how the burn down charts are created, we will have a dedicated separate sessions for these things. And done, there's another very important point. What's the definition of done? This is decided during the sprint planning. Code response to a standard. Definition done can be anything. For a user story, technically, every user story has a definition of done. So this has been decided with the team and the product owner. This is the reason product owner decides if the item is completed or not. So if a user story properly follows the definition of done, then that user story can be marked as completed. Half done is not done. There's another very much important thing is, like, if some portion of the requirement is done, this does not mean that requirement is done. That's a complete framework overview that I have explained so far, that starts from the product owner to the who will create the product backlog, and from the product backlog, a sprint planning meeting will be conducted, who will be working on the sprint backlog. And during the sprint backlog items will be done, and that sprint can be of 1 to 4 weeks. And each day, a small meeting, daily Scrum meeting of maximum 15 minutes will be conducted. And once a sprint is completed, a sprint review meeting will be held, where the finished work will be displayed. And afterwards, a sprint retrospective that will be scheduled, where we will do the inspect and adapt work. Okay, so that's for today's session. Any question so far? Okay, this means everything is understood. So There are a few more things that I can highlight. Like the people, a lot of people, they were asking that what sort of certification we need to do, and this is a quick guide for the certification point of view. Right now, the topmost you can say organization which is offering Scrum certification is Scrum Alliance, and their most popular and renowned certification is Scrum Master (CSM). We are organizing this session in Karachi next month, and the trainer, he is the certified trainer from Scrum Alliance. He'll be flying from London to Karachi. So this course will be conducted over there, and other than that, that will be the first certification in Scrum Alliance path. There will be other certification, including once if you do the Scrum Master certification, then there will be Advanced Scrum Master, and then the next level is Certified Scrum Professional. Similarly, if someone wants to follow the path of Product Owner, so there will be Product Owner certification in advanced level, and then the next level will be level 2 is Certified Scrum Professional. And there will be another certification for Scrum Developer. That's for the technical teams. And these are multiple levels. Take an example, this is the first level where we can have these 2 certification of any role. And the second level is Certified Scrum Professional. We have very limited Certified Scrum Professional in Pakistan. We don't have any certified trainer so far. I'm also certified Scrum Professional, and similarly, there are a few other people, and we are trying to become a trainer, a certified Scrum trainer for Pakistan, so we can launch these trainings in Pakistan. That's the level 3. That includes team coach, enterprise coach, and Scrum trainer. If you want to do some sort of certification from PMI platform, then ACP is the best call. Similarly, if like Scrum Alliance certifications are the one where you need to attend the in-person 2-day session, then you can appear for the exam. In PMI, like there will be a training and there will be online exam, just like PMP. But if you cannot afford all these trainings or certifications, you can also go for scrum.org, where the trainings are PSM1 and PSM2. You can do that online. You don't need to have a training. You can prepare yourself and you can give the exam online. So these are the 3 major bodies so far. There's another scaled agile safe framework, that's like the advanced part, where like Scrum and Agile frameworks are implemented in non-IT firms as well. So this is a different area. But on the first step, these are the certification. Those are very much important. So next, our session will be on sprint planning, and we will learn about what sort of sprint planning techniques we can use, how we do the estimations. The speaker can be different. There are different speakers who are in abroad and who are very much qualified. So we will be inviting those speakers to conduct all different sessions. So if you have any questions, you can ask me. Furthermore, just to tell you, Pakistan Agile Education is a Scrum Alliance registered group. So take an example, if you have taken this session, so this means you will earn 1 SEU. SEU means Scrum Educational Unit. You can also join us on Meetups, Facebook, and WhatsApp, and any other details you need, you can get from me. If you have any question, please speak now. Okay, I think that's it. Okay, guys, thanks very much. Allah Hafiz.